commentary provided in this video is for informational and educational purposes only. No advice, offer, or solicitation of any kind, expressed or implied, is being given. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of QX Financial, any subsidiaries, or associates thereof. When considering making any changes to your situation, you should consult a competent licensed professional. All rights reserved. Copyright September 17th, 2020.
This information is not intended and should not be taken as legal advice for any particular set of facts or circumstances. You should contact an attorney directly for advice with specific legal problems. None of this information creates an attorney-client relationship with the law offices of Phil Shekerlian.
Hello, I'm Nathan Bigley, financial professional with QX Financial. The following video is the first in a series of conversations on the subject of estate planning. Many of our clients and subscribers have asked us questions about estate planning, and we're really excited to be able to provide some answers to these questions for you over the course of this playlist series. I'm joined now by one of our colleagues and friend of the channel, attorney Phil Shekerlian, who will be able to shed some light on this very important topic. Thanks for joining us today, Phil.
Thank you for having me.
Our viewers can find information about QX Financial, the law offices of Phil Shekerlian, and links to any resources in the description below. As always, the information QX Financial provides on our channel is completely free. We don't spend any money promoting the channel. All that we ask is that if you find value, to please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share our videos. This is super important in helping us grow our audience. So Phil, I understand we're going to start off today with an overview of the estate planning process. But before we do that, why don't you start by telling our audience a little about yourself and your practice?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nathan, for the great introduction. As he said, my name is Phil Shekerlian. I'm an attorney in Orange County, California. I do tax, business, estate planning, asset protection, probate, and trust administration. So pretty much anything that has to do with wealth or death or taxes, which are the guaranteed things in life, taxes and death.
That's right.
So this is this has been a very challenging time with COVID because of those situations. But luckily, I have a great staff here. I have several employees that work in my office. Our doors are always open, although at this point in time, we're limited open because of COVID restrictions. Mm-hmm. And when things do open back up again, we typically have a full staff here, clients to walk in on a daily basis. You know, we have people just come and stop and visit and talk about what's going on in their life, and we try to help them out. So that most of our clients feel more like they're our family rather than just another number and paycheck for us.
Right. That's great.
Yeah. And so we do 90% of our services are done by flat fee, which means that when the client comes in, they get a free consultation to figure out what it is that they need. We then explain to them what the process is going to be, how much it's going to cost from start to finish, and that's the fee. There's no hidden fees involved. All recording fees, notary fees, things like that are all included in that price that we give the client.
Okay, so very upfront.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
So then once we've determined what that's going to be and the client wishes to retain us, at that point in time for something like an estate plan, which is probably the majority of our business, the process looks like this. Client comes in for their free consultation. We sit down and talk for a couple hours about what their needs are, what their desires are, what their situation is, and then I make recommendations to them. We then take a couple of weeks to get the documents created. Then we bring the client back in and we go over all the documents in detail with the client, make sure that they, one, understand all the documents, and two, that they reflect all of their desires. And then if that's the case, then they sign it in front of a notary and we complete the process.
All right, very cool. So it's a very personal process.
Absolutely. Yeah, the value is in sitting down with the clients and in determining who they are and what they need, not doing the documents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. So why would you say now might be a good time to start thinking about creating an estate plan?
Yeah, so there's never a good time or a bad time to do an estate plan. You obviously have to do it before you pass away or become incapacitated, for that matter. And you never know when that's going to happen. Especially now with COVID-19, more and more people are at risk of dying when they never thought they would be. So there is a little bit of a sense of urgency because you really don't know. You could be in a car accident tomorrow. You could get sick. Things happen. So I highly recommend doing it as soon as you have time. And you want to make sure that you have also thought about what you want, and what should happen to your assets.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never too soon.
Yeah, and another part of it is not just to plan for your death, but also disability and your retirement. If you want to make sure that you have money to live in retirement and leave a legacy behind when you pass away to your children or heirs, then now is the time to start planning for retirement. In your 20s is really the best time to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then part of doing the documents is several documents that's part of an estate plan. The one that most people probably know about is a will. And a will is a way to state what happens when you pass away to your assets, and also to someone in charge of who gets to divide those up. However, here in California, there is something called probate, which most states have, actually all states have. And here in California, the probate process is the court supervising the distribution of your assets to the natural heirs under the law. Well, that process can take anywhere from several months to several years to complete, and it can cost tens of thousands of dollars to the estate. So in order to avoid that, you want to have what's called a trust. And there are many types of trusts, but any trust will avoid probate if it's done properly and funded properly. That's the key. It has to be funded properly as well. And so if you have that trust, then what you would end up having is something called a pour-over will, which is a backup plan to that trust. We'll get into that in more detail later in the conversation.
Cool.
Another part of doing an estate plan is planning for your incapacity or disability. So that includes things like the financial power of attorney and your advanced healthcare directive. We'll talk about those in more detail later, but it nominates people to make decisions for you and make sure you're cared for in a time that you have Alzheimer's, dementia, you're in a coma, or just really incapable of taking care of yourself. You may also have with that healthcare directive something called a POLST or a HIPAA release, and those are more medical decisions that you can make in advance in case something happens to you. One of the most important documents, although the trust is probably the most important financially, I think the most important document by far is the nomination of guardians. If you have minor children that are under the age of 18 and family cannot cooperate and decide who will take care of those children, then litigation can ensue between the family as to who has custody of those children, and those children end up in the custody of the state until that court battle is decided, and that can take a couple of years sometimes.
Yeah.
So by doing a nomination of guardians, you eliminate all of that hassle, and the kids can go directly to whatever relative is assigned right away without the state stepping in.
And I'm sure that prevents a lot of messiness within the family as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the more you plan on ahead of time, the less the family fights, and then you don't have to worry about your legacy causing the family to be split apart.
Right. Yeah, no, that would be terrible.
Definitely. Unfortunately, I see that quite often too. And then another part of doing an estate plan could be potentially setting up business entities or other types of trusts to give you asset protection or even help to reduce the amount of taxes that you pay on things.
Yeah, that's a big thing that people worry about is the taxes, right? And
absolutely.
You don't want to get nailed with a high tax bill, especially when you're on the verge of retirement.
But definitely, that's a very important time to make sure that you have your tax plan in place. But any time is, who really is happy with how much they pay in taxes?
Nobody.
So, any time is the right time to do tax planning.
Very true.
So some of the risks of not doing an estate plan, like I had mentioned earlier, you could end up in probate, and it can cost your family several months to years and tens of thousands of dollars. Your family could pay more in estate taxes. They could end up paying more in capital gains taxes. They could also pay more in property taxes under Prop 13. If the right planning's not done, all of those could go through the roof. Then,
so
like you had said,
property tax.
Go ahead.
How could they pay increased property tax?
Well, if they don't transfer the assets to the right family members, then there's a potential that the property could be reassessed and the property tax basis goes up. Or even if they do desire it to go to the correct family members, right paperwork needs to be filed to make sure that you get that protection and that the property is not reassessed.
So there is just so many things going on and so many things to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And no two situations are alike. It doesn't matter whether you are Bill Gates or you are just an average blue collar worker. The things to think about are different in every single situation, and so it always requires a custom tailored plan.
Right. Absolutely.
Like you said earlier, it prevents fights among family. If you don't have an estate plan or a will done, then family typically tends to fight over who's in charge of dividing it, who gets what, and it's not as clear.
Right.
And then you may want to make sure the assets go to the proper heirs. Under the law, there is a schedule of what happens when you die, who your next closest heir is that your assets go to. But you may not want that. You may want something different. You may want, you may want one child to have more than another because maybe one child is special needs and needs more care than the other child does. Or maybe one child is not very good with money, so you want their money to be managed by somebody else rather than go to them directly so that it don't go through it. So by doing a trust or a will, you can decide how that money goes to who rather than what the law says.
Right. That's very important. You definitely don't want the state making those decisions, right? There's so many different areas where it can get messed up that if you don't take the time to plan it, you're going to put yourself through some misery later on when you should be enjoying your retirement. So
absolutely.
Very cool.
Then, the last part of the risk of not having an estate plan is one, not having enough money to retire on. Most people, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but the majority of the people are not set up for the retirement that they expect to have. And even worse, if you are set up for that retirement, are you going to have anything left over to pass on to your kids and heirs to make sure they're taken care of? So the earlier you plan, the easier it is to make sure that you have that amount necessary for retirement and leaving a legacy available.
Right. Couldn't agree more. It's a big thing we actually focus on is passing on that legacy. Sometimes we think about just spending all the money we have without taking a proper plan in how that money is going to last us throughout retirement, and being able to pass on a legacy to your kids and your kids' kids. There's no better feeling in the world than that. A lot of the clients we've seen and worked with that have been able to do that, there's a lot of joy in that. So
yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's why I work with you and everybody at your company to make sure that our clients work hand in hand to make sure that our clients do have that comprehensive plan.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah. So that was just a general overview of a lot of topics. We will go into a lot of those topics in more detail in the following videos. So please listen to the next videos to find out more about each of those topics.
Awesome. We really appreciate you taking the time, Phil. Thank you all again for watching. I hope you found this video to be of some value. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.